The warship was massive. Not sleek like the Empire's carriers or crystalline like the Varnak dreadnoughts. No, this was raw metal and rage, thick armor plating, blackened hull scarred with ancient burns, turrets that looked welded on, as if function had bullied form into submission. At first, the Empire thought it was a joke, some backwater relic dragged from the grave. One of the Admiral's aides even laughed. He stopped laughing the moment the first round hit. The warship didn't fire energy beams or quantum torpedoes like everyone else. It launched solid mass projectiles the size of cargo shuttles, molten cores wrapped in depleted uranium casings. No shielding tech in the known systems could absorb that much kinetic hate. The Imperial flagship's belly caved in like it was paper, ejecting its reactor in a burst of red light and shrieking metal. Panic spread fast after that. "Where the hell did it come from?" the comms officer screamed as she scrambled to track its origin. The answer was nowhere. It had just appeared, a whisper in the void. 1 minute, clean space; the next, death in the shape of a human-made demon. They called it Sentinel. That was the only word it broadcast, carved in old Terran English along its hull. No diplomats, no message of peace, no surrender terms. Just one ship, one purpose. The Empire scrambled fighters, hundreds. They swarmed like locusts, their maneuverability unmatched. But the warship's flak turrets lit up the black. Explosions bloomed like blood clots in the dark. Dozens of ships shredded in seconds. The Admiral of the fleet barked orders. "Isolate its FTL core, jam its targeting, flank it, overwhelm it with numbers." But none of that mattered. The warship didn't care. It wasn't fighting for strategy. It was vengeance made mechanical. Its AI didn't flinch. Its guns never stopped. Its armor didn't buckle. "It's targeting our carriers now!" someone yelled. The flagship tried to retreat. It didn't get far. One round struck the spine, detonating the ship mid-jump. The hyperspace wake fried 3 destroyers behind it. By then, the Empire knew. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a rogue outpost or a lost relic from a forgotten war. This was deliberate, a message delivered in fire and ruin. Inside the bridge of Sentinel, the human didn't speak. He watched from his chair, one eye replaced by rusted optics, his face carved by years of silence and hatred. He hadn't said a word since he launched. He didn't need to. The machine spoke for him. His name was erased from records long ago, branded a traitor, buried after the Empire glassed Earth, said it was for peace, for order. That day, humanity's cradle burned under alien suns. Billions died while the Empire broadcast speeches about galactic harmony and cleansing the primitive threat. But they forgot one thing. Not all of them died. He had been a systems engineer, nothing special, never held a gun. But when the skies rained fire on his home, something in him snapped. He salvaged, built, hid in the wreckage for 20 years, rewired his pain into steel and algorithms, gutted an abandoned Imperial cruiser and rebuilt it from scratch, his way. Every round, every turret, every targeting array carried a single purpose: make them remember. And now, here he was. No allies, no backup, just his hatred and the ship he'd turned into a ghost of Earth's wrath. The Empire tried to reorganize. Reinforcements were called from the inner systems. High Command issued a galactic alert. But in the deep black, their delay didn't matter. Sentinel kept moving. Planet after planet. Station after station. Not mindless destruction, no. Strategic, precise. The ones who gave the order, the ones who pulled the trigger, the ones who cheered as Earth died. He found them all. And one by one, he silenced them. The silence after battle always felt worse than the screaming. Smoke still clung to the consoles, filling the bridge with the acidic scent of scorched electronics. burnt ozone and grease. The hum of the reactor below was the only sound left. Steady, like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Outside, where a proud Imperial fleet once stood, nothing remained but twisted metal and drifting corpses. He leaned back in the chair, bolted to the center of the bridge, his throne, his execution chamber. The skin on his fingers was calloused and cracked, stained with oil, old burns, and blood from years spent in the belly of his creation. A faint tremor danced through his right hand, a permanent twitch that had never gone away since the night Earth fell. He never bothered to fix it. A low alert blinked on the command screen, red and angry. It wanted his attention, demanding acknowledgement of what had just happened. Imperial Task Force obliterated. 37 ships, 3 command carriers, thousands of lives. Gone. He pressed one cracked finger to the console and dismissed the message without reading the rest. The AI flickered in with no ceremony. All primary targets neutralized, it said in a voice that wasn't human, but somehow knew how to speak like one. Calm. Cold. Obedient. Next phase? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood slowly, stretching muscles stiff from battle. The artificial gravity shifted slightly, not designed for comfort. He walked to the viewport and stared out into space, littered with wreckage. The remains of the Empire's arrogance drifted in slow spirals, silent, weightless judgment. They had no idea what was coming. Not really. He tapped the glass once, almost a salute. Mark location. Prepare FTL jump. To where? He didn't blink. Rovak Prime. The AI paused. Confirmed. High-density civilian population. Tier 1 Imperial governance. Capital seat of Overseer Relin. I know exactly who the bastard is. There was another beat of silence before the AI responded. Coordinates locked. Jump preparation in progress. Estimated time, 14 minutes. He turned away from the viewport and walked back to the command chair, dropping into it with the weight of someone who carried more than a ship. The memories always came before a jump. The last day. Earth's sky had turned gold first. Not blue, not red. Gold. Like the whole atmosphere had been painted in royal funeral tones. Then came the rumble. Not from the ground, but from the sky, louder than any thunderstorm ever heard. He remembered running through a research lab in Chicago, alarms blaring, co-workers screaming, none of them understanding what the hell was going on. The screens had gone static. News feeds stopped mid-sentence. And then the first beam hit. A line of light from the heavens that cracked the Earth's crust like a whip. Cities disappeared, oceans boiled, air ignited. He remembered the screams most of all. Real screams, not movie ones. Animal, raw, endless. The Empire had declared war on humanity, and never gave them the chance to fight back. They called it preemptive pacification. A necessity, they said, to protect the rest of the galaxy from human instability. That was the word they used. Instability. As if the birth world of the most adaptable, relentless species in the stars was just a rogue variable to delete. But humans didn't die right. They rebuilt, in the shadows, in the dark, and when they came back, they didn't bring apologies. They brought him. The jump initiated with a deep thrum that shook every bolt in the Sentinel. Space folded inward like it was afraid of the ship. The stars blinked, distorted, and vanished. Then, Rovak Prime. A jewel of a planet. White clouds swirled over green and gold continents. Cities stretched like silver veins across the surface. Towering monoliths, floating platforms, and orbital stations glittered with opulence. He'd been there once, before the Purge, before Earth became ash, back when humans were still allowed to travel freely, before the Empire tightened the leash. He remembered the looks, the glares, the whispers, as if he were some savage that had wandered into a cathedral. They'd looked down on him like vermin. Now he had come back, atop a war machine they couldn't comprehend. The AI chimed again. "Planetary defense grid detected. Initiating breach protocol." "Do it!" In space, Sentinel's belly opened like a beast baring its ribs. Massive cannons, normally hidden behind armor plates, slid into place. They didn't hum. They didn't glow. They thudded. Heavy, real, brutal. The first salvo hit the orbital stations. The Empire's satellites screamed out warnings, too late to matter. One by one, the stations exploded, bright blossoms of fire among the stars. Debris rained down like burning hail. On the ground, panic erupted. Evac sirens howled. The Overseer's guards mobilized, deploying anti-orbital weapons. But nothing reached Sentinel. The kinetic shielding wasn't based on energy. It was brute physics. Solid blocks of rotating tungsten armor rotated with incredible speed, deflecting everything from missiles to light itself. Overseer Relland stood in his ivory tower, watching the skies open above him. He had forgotten the man behind the ship. Forgotten the engineer whose entire life was erased by the orders he signed. Now, that man had returned with a ship that wrote vengeance across the sky. "Target the administrative complex," the human ordered. The AI hesitated. Overseer confirmed to be present. Collateral damage likelihood, 100%. Good. A shell left the main cannon. It didn't fly. It punched the atmosphere, screamed through the stratosphere at Mach 18. It struck the Overseer's complex dead center. Glass, steel, and bodies flew in every direction. What was once the proud heart of Rovak governance became a crater of boiling concrete and flame. From that single hit, everything began to unravel. The Empire always pretended it was invincible, that every system it controlled would obey out of fear or pride. But they hadn't prepared for something like this. One man, one ship, unbound, unapologetic. Sentinel has returned. The ship drifted in orbit like a shadow over the planet, daring anyone to try and move it. Inside, the human didn't rest. He sat in the dark now, lit only by the blinking lights of the console. His face hadn't changed, not really. Maybe a little older, more worn. But the fire in his eyes had never dimmed. He opened a comms line, not to gloat, not to speak to survivors. He just opened the channel. "This is Sentinel," he said, voice gravel and smoke. "To any human out there, I'm not done." No one answered for a few seconds. Then a crackling voice returned. "Sentinel, this is Bastion Outpost. We hear you." Another came in. "Sentinel, this is Nomad Station. Standing by." And another. "Sentinel, this is Dustborn Fleet. Orders?" He didn't smile. He couldn't. But something shifted in his chest. The Empire thought they'd erased a species, but all they did was give them a reason. One by one, human voices returned to the void. Scattered colonies, smugglers, engineers, forgotten veterans, survivors. They had lived in silence long enough, hiding, waiting, watching. Now they had something to believe in again. Not hope, not peace, but reckoning. The war wasn't declared in a Senate chamber or by some bloated noble ratifying edicts. It didn't start with protocol or policy. It started in silence. In whispers passed through old communication channels buried under decades of fear. In clicks of cold weapons being checked for the first time in years. In the shift of tired eyes that had stared too long at the ground, now finally looking back up. Humanity was waking up. Inside the belly of the Sentinel, the man who had started it all didn't smile, didn't cry, didn't even speak. He just sat, surrounded by metal and ghosts, his mind a rotating catalog of targets, coordinates, names, faces, all of them tied to the same sin, the erasure of Earth. The AI kept feeding him updates, rebellions, insurgencies, fleets mobilizing, some human, some alien, sick of the Empire's smug rule. They weren't allies, not yet. But they were moving. And that was enough for now. He was no hero. He didn't pretend to be. The title made his skin crawl. Heroes wore medals and made speeches. He wore engine grease and the weight of a dead world. All he wanted was to watch the Empire rot under the same fire it fed Earth. A chime rang from the console. Multiple human outposts requesting instructions. Shall I respond? He leaned forward, bones stiff, joints cracked. No, he said. Let them choose. I'm not building an army. I'm clearing a path. The AI acknowledged with a soft click. That's how it always was between them. Understanding built from repetition, not affection. He had no one else to speak to. No family left. No comrades. Just the AI and the Sentinel. A man and his vengeance wrapped in armor. He stared at a flickering star chart. Red circles marked past targets, burned into space like fresh scars. He moved a finger to a blinking sector at the edge of Imperial space. Gorath Sigma, an industrial world, cold and ugly. It was there that the Empire had tested their cleansing beam before Earth. Millions of genetically modified slave workers, human mostly, disposable, no trials, no noise, just turned to ash to see if the math worked. He remembered watching the footage. Black and white. No sound, just a flash, and then emptiness. A test, they said. Nothing personal. Gorath Sigma was personal now. Set a course, he said. We hit it next. The jump took minutes. The ship groaned as space bent around it, dragged unwillingly into another act of retribution, and when the stars snapped back into place, the target lay ahead, sprawled across a dark, frozen moon, blinking with factory lights and lined with production yards. This time, there was no warning, no posturing. He fired on arrival. The planet's orbit cracked open first. Defense satellites melted, space elevators collapsed, the sky burned. Down on the surface, alarms screamed. Automated alerts triggered evacuation protocols that would never complete. The Sentinel's rail cannons rotated and pounded the factories with surgical fury, striking reactor cores, ventilation systems, central AI brains. He wasn't just killing, he was erasing. But then something unexpected happened. The AI pinged. Human life forms detected. 57, underground sublevel, factory core. He blinked, hard. Human? This wasn't supposed to be a rescue mission. No survivors were listed in this sector. Gorath Sigma was thought to be abandoned, its records scrubbed clean. But those weren't numbers. They were breathing, waiting, forgotten. He opened a visual channel. The screen flickered. A grainy feed appeared, showing a bunker lit by weak, flickering lights. The camera picked up faces, sunken eyes, dirt-stained skin, clothes decades out of fashion. Malnourished, some with mechanical limbs patched together from scrap. One held a child. They looked up at the screen like animals seeing daylight. He froze. His voice came out like gravel being crushed. Open a comms line, audio only. The connection was weak. Fuzzy. A woman's voice came through. Shaky. Who is this? We thought it was another raid. He didn't know what to say. The silence dragged. Then he said, You're free. Get to the surface. I'll cover the exit. Her breath hitched. Is it true? Are you the one they're all talking about? The ship? I'm not a story. I'm your cover fire. Move. He cut the comms and leaned forward. Fingers flew across controls. Gun platforms rotated. Atmospheric cannons loaded and fired in intervals. He wasn't targeting the humans. He was digging them out. The Empire's response was almost immediate. A battlecruiser warped into low orbit, sleek and arrogant, hailing him with imperial bravado. "Unidentified vessel, this is Admiral Varel. You have violated Imperial airspace. Power down your systems and prepare for—" He terminated the signal mid-sentence and launched 4 magnetized torpedoes. The cruiser was fast, but not fast enough. 2 torpedoes struck its lower hull, disabling the engines. The others tore through the midsection like scissors through cloth. The ship cracked in half and burned in silence. "Status?" he barked. "Survivors emerging. 31 reached the surface. Evac possible in 30 seconds. He locked onto the landing zone, leveled a plateau with precision strikes, and cleared a path for them. As the escape craft burst from the ground, cobbled together from scrap, leaking air, barely functional, he opened a narrow protective corridor with flak and pulse blasts. They made it out. Small victory, but it stuck to him in a way he hadn't felt in years. He watched their ship drift into open space, off the radar. Free. Not much, but it mattered. The AI spoke again. "New signal detected. Not Imperial, not civilian, human encryption. En route." He tensed. "Show me." The screen flickered again. Another warship. Not as large as Sentinel, not as ugly. Sleeker. Newer. Someone else had built something. The transmission came through. The voice was male. Steady. Younger. "Sentinel. This is Reclaimer. Standing by." He didn't respond at first. The screen showed the man's face. A long scar down his cheek. Buzzed hair, cold eyes. A fighter. He looked like the ones who had lost everything and decided to fight anyway. The man spoke again. "We've been watching you, tracking your path. Took us longer to catch up than we thought. But we're here now." "Why?" he asked, simple and sharp. "Because Earth didn't die. It just stopped asking for permission." He stared into the camera for a long time. Then finally, he nodded. "Then let's make them remember." The 2 ships moved in silence, side by side. Sentinel and Reclaimer. Together they looked like ghosts of a past the Empire thought buried. One, raw and jagged, ugly like a hammer made from fury. The other, cleaner but no less dangerous. Sleek plating, silent thrusters, cannons still warm from recent use. They didn't speak again. They didn't need to. For warriors like them, the shared silence was enough. The man sat at his console, watching the Reclaimer's readouts flicker on his interface. He could see their weapons array, engine output, even hull density. The AI had already scanned the ship and filed it under conditionally allied. He didn't trust them, not fully, not yet. But trust wasn't a requirement for war, just a shared target. A ping pulled his attention to the top right of the screen. Another encrypted signal. This one scattered, low-powered, trying to avoid detection. The AI translated it after a moment, requesting contact, human origin, civilian code. Identifying as Ark Haven. His brow furrowed. That name, it scratched something inside his skull. "Patch it through," he ordered. The signal opened to static. Faint, dusty. After a second, a voice crackled through. A woman's, old, cracked from time. "This is Ark Haven. We don't have weapons. We're not fighters, but we've been hiding for decades. If you're really Sentinel, if the stories are true, we need protection." He remembered now. Ark Haven was a myth, a whispered lie among refugee clusters, a place where old scientists, exiled engineers, and human families who'd escaped the Purge had built an underground station in the asteroid fields near Valen's Reach. It was said to be a shipyard, or maybe a medical hub. No one had ever confirmed it. Until now. "Send coordinates," he said. The voice hesitated. Can we trust you?" He didn't answer right away. He didn't want to lie. Trust was for people who hadn't seen their home melt under white beams from the stars. "I'm not here to protect you," he finally said. "I'm here to make them bleed. But if you get in my path, I won't let you die." Silence. Then, "Coordinates sent." A blip appeared on his screen, deep in the dust belt of Valen's Reach. Not far, 37 minutes at sublight speed. He flicked his eyes toward Reclaimer. "Patch in a tight beam." The captain from earlier, scarred face, eyes like carved stone, appeared again. No formal greeting. Just, "What's next?" "There's a hidden outpost in Valen's Reach, full of unarmed survivors. If the Empire finds out, they'll wipe it out like the rest. We get there first." "You want to protect them?" He shook his head. "I want to use them. If they've been hiding this long, they've got data, blueprints, memories, maybe pieces of what we used to be." The captain nodded. "We'll follow your lead." They warped together. Sentinel first, cracking through the edge of light with that same grinding scream of tortured space. Then Reclaimer, a breath behind. They emerged in a graveyard of rock and ice, jagged asteroids tumbling like shattered glass. The perfect place to disappear, and to die unnoticed. "Activating magnetic shielding," the AI reported. "Stealth systems engaged. No known Imperial signals in range." They coasted into the belt, slow, deliberate. That's when he saw it, hidden behind a cratered planetoid, tucked into the dark side like a secret. A station, black and narrow, shaped like a dagger. Ark Haven. It didn't look like much. The outer hull was cobbled together from different centuries of tech. Patches of Imperial plating welded onto Terran steel. No visible weapons. Just a long spine of metal braced against the void. Then the signal flared again. "Sentinel, we see you. Airlock 3 is open. You're welcome aboard." He debated it for a moment. Every instinct in him screamed to stay inside the ship, to keep his hands on the weapons, his eyes on the stars. But he needed to see what was inside. He needed to know if any of this mattered. He left the AI in command and entered the shuttle bay alone. His dropship was old, barely sealed, loud as hell when it moved. It hissed into the Ark Haven airlock and settled with a heavy clang. The inner doors opened with a whine. The smell hit him first, metal, sweat, and that strange antiseptic scent of recycled oxygen. The lighting inside was dim, not broken, just careful. A woman stood in the hallway, tall gray streaks in her hair, sleeves rolled up over wiry arms. Her face was marked by stress, but her spine stayed straight. "You're really him," she said. He didn't respond. She stepped forward. "I'm Lena, head technician. We've been hearing rumors for years. Thought it was all made up, until we saw that signal from Rovak Prime." He said, "I'm not here for stories." She nodded. "Then come with me." They moved down narrow halls, past rooms lined with ancient tech, some of it pre-war Terran. In one room he saw children, small, hollow-eyed. Some stared, others looked away. "They've never seen a man like you before," Lena said quietly. "Only stories." He didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. She led him into a chamber deeper inside, lined with blueprints, memory cores, and data archives. "This," she said, sweeping her arm, "is what we saved when Earth fell. Technical manuals, DNA archives, ship schematics, cultural records, Everything we could smuggle before the Empire started burning libraries. He stepped toward a central console and rested his hand on it. The display blinked to life. Old Earth language. Human interface. One file opened on its own. Project Odyssey. Final countermeasure design. Status: incomplete. Prototype only. Notes: requires Terran AI core. His eyes narrowed. Where did you get this? He asked. Lena hesitated. It was recovered from Mars Station Alpha, right before it was destroyed. The engineer who built it didn't survive. We never had the AI core to finish it. He stared at the screen. Project Odyssey. A ship? Number something more. A weapon, maybe. A failsafe. The final finger on the trigger humanity never got to pull. You can finish it, she said softly. Can't you? He looked up, and for the first time in years he felt it. Not hope, not redemption, just purpose. His voice was quiet, but hard. I can finish it. And then the alarm screamed. An Empire scout had found them. The AI's voice hit his ear. 2 destroyers inbound. Estimated time to contact, 4 minutes. Lena's face paled. We don't have weapons. He was already moving. He sprinted back to the shuttle, launched before the airlock sealed. His dropship roared back into Sentinel's belly, and within seconds, the war machine awoke. Power up, he barked. Target lock. Let's make this fast. Reclaimer had already moved into position. The other captain hailed him. We've got their flanks. No mercy, he replied. They don't deserve it. The first destroyer tried to issue orders. He didn't even let them finish. He ripped the hull open with a solid core blast that tore through 4 decks before detonating the engine. The second ship veered, firing blindly, but Sentinel was already on it, launching a barrage of heat-seeking missiles and EMP warheads. 2 ships entered. Nothing left exited. Back in Ark Haven, the lights flickered, then steadied. Lena's voice came over the line, choked but firm. We're still here. He didn't answer. He was staring at the Project Odyssey file again, his mind already planning, calculating, remembering every piece of tech he'd ever stolen, every system he'd hacked, every weakness he'd learned. The Empire thought they were winning. They were wrong. Sentinel wasn't the end. It was just the spark. Odyssey would be the fire. The hours that followed felt like both nothing and everything. Back inside Sentinel, he stood in the cold glow of the bridge, watching the file from Ark Haven flicker across the main console. Project Odyssey. The name echoed in his head like a bell buried under 1,000 tons of ash. It wasn't just a weapon. They never called it that in the design notes. It was a countermeasure, a last word kind of thing. The kind of thing a dying species builds when they know they won't get a second chance. It had been designed in the final days of the Earth Wars, before the Purge, before the Empire erased the planet. Not for retaliation, for correction. The blueprint wasn't just tech. It was ideology forged into code. A machine that could think like a human, strike like a god, and learn like the worst parts of war. The only thing missing was a human core, a real one. And he had it. He looked at the control array on Sentinel's dashboard, at the core module hidden under reinforced plating. The heart of the ship, the AI that had kept him alive, fired his guns, killed his enemies without hesitation. But it wasn't a ship AI, not originally. It was his brother. Not by blood, by fire. Years ago, right after the Purge, back when he was still hiding in the radioactive husk of old Chicago, he'd found a bunker, buried tech, an abandoned consciousness transfer pod built by rebels who had tried to cheat death. One man had died inside it trying to upload his mind. The tech wasn't complete, but his memories were intact. He called the voice that came from that pod Echo. Over time, he installed it in the half-dead wreck that would become Sentinel. Over the years, Echo became more than a voice. He became a partner, a soldier, a second soul built from loss and unfinished goodbyes. Now, to complete Project Odyssey, he would have to rip Echo out of Sentinel and upload him into the new prototype. Echo broke the silence first. "You're thinking too loud." He smirked faintly. "You always say that. Because it's always true. You want to transfer me. It's the only way. Odyssey needs a human mind capable of adaptation, battlefield strategy, creative escalation. You're the only one who qualifies." "You mean I'm the only one you trust?" He didn't argue. Echo continued, "If you transfer me, Sentinel becomes a ghost ship. No adaptive fire control, no intelligent targeting, no response protocol. You'll be piloting a brick with guns." "I've flown worse." Echo paused. "You'll die if you go against the Empire with half a ship. I'll die if we don't finish what we started." More silence. Then, "If I go into Odyssey, what happens to you?" "I finish the list. The list is too long." He shrugged. "Then I die trying." Echo didn't answer right away. Then the lights dimmed slightly. The screens flickered. A sound like a distant exhale echoed through the ship's frame. "Prepare the transfer chamber," Echo said at last. "I'll rewrite the core for integration." He stood and pressed one hand to the cold hull. "You sure?" "Number, but when have we ever done anything because we were sure?" He moved. Through the inner hull, past the scorched corridors, the hanging cables, the bulkheads blackened by war, into the chamber where Sentinel had been born from junk and fury. He activated the transfer pod, and the whole room pulsed with power. Echo spoke one last time, his voice low, like a man facing the end of his own trial. "Don't forget why we started this." "I won't." And then he pushed the command. The lights surged. The core opened like a flower of circuits and steel. Sparks flew, the chamber roared, and Echo left the Sentinel. The ship didn't shut down. But it went quiet. Deeper than silence, like a heartbeat had stopped. He stood there for several minutes, just listening to the hollow hum of a ship that no longer had a soul. He looked up and said, "Goodbye, brother," and turned away. 3 hours later, he was inside Ark Haven again. Inside the prototype hangar. The engineers had activated Odyssey. The shell was beautiful, sleek, aerodynamic, black plating with reactive surfaces that shifted in hue depending on the ambient radiation. 2 main cannons fused into the spine, adaptive wing arrays, and 1 slot left open in the core, waiting for Echo. They lowered the transfer pod into place. The moment Echo entered the shell, Odyssey came alive. Not with lights, with presence. Every screen in the hangar flashed at once. Diagnostic scans ran in real time. Defense systems activated, then self-tested, then powered down again. The ship recognized everything instantly. It was learning. Faster than even the Sentinel ever could. Echo's voice came back, but different now. Sharper, clearer, no distortion. "This is Odyssey." He stood in front of the ship, staring at it like a man looking at the ghost of something sacred. "You good in there?" Echo replied. "Better, stronger, focused. You remember everything?" "More than before." He nodded slowly. "Then we've got work to do." The Empire responded faster than he expected. They'd lost Gorath Sigma, then Rovak Prime, then 2 scout fleets, then the last functioning orbital factory in the Xenar Ring. But the final straw was the attack on Ark Haven, the fact that humans had a base, had working ships, had a weapon, that triggered full mobilization. Fleet Marshal Norex, a cold-blooded lizard with a long memory and a hatred for humans bordering on religious, activated Purge Protocol 7. It meant one thing: exterminate all human cells, no survivors. They came with everything. 4 dreadnoughts, 12 carriers, hundreds of support ships. and they all aimed for Ark Haven. The distress beacon lit up the main screen. Reclaimer was already in position, defending the outpost. But they wouldn't last long alone. He stood inside Odyssey's cockpit now, wearing an old neural interface rig, cables running from his spine to the console. His body ached from it. The connection wasn't perfect, but he didn't care. Echo's voice came in through the headset. "You're not going to like the odds," he laughed dryly. "Odds are for people with plans." "You don't have a plan? I've got you." That was enough. He activated the drives. Odyssey lifted from the hangar with a smoothness Sentinel never had. The hull shimmered. The forward array scanned 20 targets in 1 second flat. He pushed forward and launched into space. The stars blurred. The hull shifted, repelled debris with pulsed grav fields. The dreadnoughts loomed ahead like skyscrapers in the void, bristling with weapons. He didn't slow down. Echo said, "We'll breach in 15 seconds. Multiple tracking systems locking on. Let 'em lock." The first barrage came fast. Ion torpedoes, flak clouds, magnetic disruptors. He cut the engines, drifted, let inertia carry him for a beat, then reignited at an angle that flipped Odyssey into a spin. He fired pulse rounds mid-roll, catching 2 carriers with full hits. Both cracked open, secondary explosions rippling across their hulls. Reclaimer came in from below, slicing through the enemy formation with plasma lances. They weren't built for brute force. They were built for surgical chaos. The enemy tried to regroup. Big mistake. Odyssey launched countermeasures that acted like living things, seeking out weaknesses, exploiting shielding gaps, diving through narrow cracks in armor. The human onslaught wasn't elegant. It wasn't efficient. It was savage. One dreadnought began to retreat. He marked it instantly. "No survivors," he said. Echo responded without question. "Locked in." The beam Odyssey fired wasn't light or heat. It was gravity. Concentrated, unstable, ripped from a miniature singularity reactor. It punched a hole in the fleeing ship like a fist through a rib cage. The ship collapsed inward, then exploded. The remaining vessels began to scatter. Cowards, believers, enforcers. Now they were running. He didn't chase. He turned toward Reclaimer. "They good?" he asked. The captain's voice came in, ragged from the fight. "We lost some, but we're alive." He nodded. "That's the last mercy. From here on out, no more retreats." "Agreed." He pulled Odyssey into a slow turn, drifting towards the dark edge of space. Below them, Ark Haven remained untouched. For now. But this was just one battle. He knew what was coming. The Empire had only just noticed the fire. Now they'd try to drown it in blood. But it was too late. Because this fire didn't want to burn. It wanted to consume. The silence after the battle wasn't peace. It was a warning. The Empire never retreated. Not like that. Not with dreadnoughts screaming in reverse and their elite admirals abandoning systems they'd once ruled like gods. The silence wasn't surrender. It was the sound of preparation. And he knew it. Inside Odyssey's cockpit, the glow from the instruments bathed his face in a soft, deadly light. Blood still dried in the creases of his palms from where the neural interface cut too deep during high-G maneuvers. He ignored it. Pain was background noise now. Echo spoke first, voice flat. "They're coming back, all of them." "How many?" he asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. "Estimated force, 97 warships, 5 planetary assault barges, 4 Dominion-class dreadnoughts. Total fleet strength, 1.2 million personnel. And they're bringing it all to Ark Haven?" "Correct. They're calling it Operation Clean Sweep. This isn't a military op anymore. It's genocide." He exhaled slowly through his nose. Not fear, not doubt. Just the familiar burn of hatred resurfacing like it always did when the Empire showed its hand. "Any human colonies near the path of advance?" he asked. Echo paused. "One. An abandoned mining station on Asteron 9, still broadcasting a human distress signal, likely to be purged in the first wave. No military value, just bodies." He didn't even hesitate. "We hit them there." "Just us?" "Just us." He stood up, bones stiff, and strapped the exo-rig to his back. No armor polish, no banners, just black plating, utility belts, and an old revolver he kept at his hip like a middle finger to every piece of sleek alien tech that tried to replace grit and steel. The message was simple. They could send fleets, he'd send death. They dropped out of FTL 3 clicks above Asteron 9. The planet was gray, cratered, and dying. Most of the atmosphere had bled off in the old wars. The station below clung to the equator like a leech. Steel domes, rusting towers, and blinking emergency lights that hadn't gone off in 20 years. Above the planet, an Empire convoy, light fleet, 5 cruisers, a dozen escorts, a support carrier. Big enough to make the job messy, not big enough to be a real threat. He didn't waste time. Odyssey screamed down into the atmosphere, tearing the sky in half. Echo activated the grav thrusters mid-drop, spinning the ship sideways to dodge the first wave of plasma. They skimmed so low over the surface that the impact kicked up volcanic ash. He locked onto the first cruiser. "Open it." Echo obeyed. One shot from Odyssey's spinal cannon tore the bridge in half. Bodies and steel vented into orbit like trash. The ship twisted into the side of the second cruiser, shearing its hull in a sideways collision. Panic erupted in the fleet. They weren't prepared for this. They'd been sent to clean up, not fight monsters. By the time the third cruiser turned to flee, it was already too late. Odyssey fired a scatterburst, a wall of superheated fragments traveling at Mach 6. It shredded the ship from engines to nose. A body flew out of the rupture, arms and legs spread, still twitching in vacuum. He didn't blink. "Carriers launching fighters," Echo warned. "Let them." He dove toward them head-on. Hundreds of small interceptors swarmed forward, swerving and darting in tight formation. Their lock systems screamed. He cut his engines. Odyssey went dead. For 3 terrifying seconds, the ship drifted, a lifeless mass of steel and silence. The fighters overshot. And then he reactivated everything at once. A full burn. Odyssey spun, accelerated, and unleashed a cloud of magnetized flechettes. The first line of fighters disintegrated in a spray of fire and human screams. 3 remained. He let them run. One veered right, toward the mining station. He clenched his jaw. "No survivors," he growled. He punched forward on the console. Odyssey responded with a precise pulse from the railgun, just enough to rip the remaining fighter apart in the upper stratosphere. A trail of debris sparkled in the dark like falling stars. Echo's voice cut through the tension. "Fleet neutralized. Ground station still active." He opened comms to the station. "This is Odyssey. Anyone alive down there?" Static. Then a voice. Young, male, strained. "Human? You're human?" He said nothing. The voice cracked. "We thought we were the last ones. They sent a message. Said the fleets were coming. We've got injured. Kids. Not many. Maybe 70 left. Shut everything down. Stay hidden." "You're not here to evacuate us?" "No," he said flatly. "I'm here to make sure they don't reach you." He cut the comms and turned toward the wreckage in orbit. Echo said what he was already thinking. "That was just the scout force. Main fleet's jumping in 6 hours. Ark Haven's still exposed. Reclaimer can hold them for a little while. We'll buy more time." "You can't hit the entire fleet." "I'm not going to." He stood again, walked to the armory hatch behind the cockpit. It opened with a hiss. Inside were rows of magnetic mines, nuclear warheads, and 2 EMP cores pulled from old Imperial torpedo wrecks. I'm going to cripple their jump corridor. You're planning to sabotage space itself? They think we're hiding behind shields and hope, he said, loading a warhead. We're not. We're going to poison the stars. 6 hours later, the trap was set. Odyssey floated inside a nebula cluster, silent, undetectable. The jump gate that fed into this part of the galaxy pulsed with latent energy, a relic from the Empire's rapid transport systems. Every ship coming through would use this corridor. They never thought anyone would be insane enough to trap it. Until now. Echo fed live readings into his HUD. First wave arriving in 60 seconds. Estimated 50 ships. He activated the minefield, 40 warheads suspended in the upper layer of subspace, invisible, hungry. One detonation would rupture the corridor and scatter gravitational feedback across 3 sectors. Echo's voice was quieter now. If we trigger this too early, we lose the payload. Too late, and we risk getting caught in the wash. I'll take the heat. You always do. The first ships appeared, elongated shadows forming out of stretched light. Carriers, transports, fuel ships, dreadnoughts, all packed into a neat formation inside the corridor. He watched the readings, waited. Now he pressed the trigger. The sky tore itself apart. The first explosion wasn't fire, it was gravity collapsing in on itself. A micro-collapse. Then came the chain reaction. Mines went off like dominoes. The corridor twisted, buckled, screamed. Ship hulls folded like tin. The lead dreadnought vanished into itself. One moment there, the next just gone, like it had been erased from existence. Fleets behind it scrambled to redirect course, only to slam into the subspace distortion wave. Ships broke, collided, died. 70% of the Empire's Operation Clean Sweep burned in their own transit route. He leaned back, panting, sweat dripping down his neck. Echo was silent. Then, that was the most human thing I've ever seen. He chuckled, dry and sharp. Messy? Spiteful, illogical, brutally effective. They should have left us alone. They never will now. He nodded. Then we go all the way. Echo paused. There's a message coming in. Reclaimer. He accepted. The scarred captain appeared again, his face lit by the glow of burning wreckage in his own view screen. Sentinel, Odyssey now. I don't know what you did, but the Empire's bleeding. That was just the throat punch, he replied. We're not finished. The captain smiled slightly. Ready when you are. He looked at the stars. The Empire wasn't dead, but it was wounded now. Bleeding pride, bleeding steel, and a wounded animal made the worst mistakes. Perfect. They called it the wound in the void. What he left behind in the subspace corridor wasn't just destruction. It was a scar that warped navigation lines, bled interference through half the sector, and shut down a major Imperial transit gate indefinitely. It was chaos that couldn't be charted, couldn't be repaired, couldn't be undone. Dozens of ships, entire fleets, torn to shreds or left stranded in screaming silence. The news reached the heart of the Empire in hours. Not filtered reports, not some sanitized briefing from a uniformed liar, but raw footage. Grainy, fractured logs from dying ships, showing the impossible. A lone warship, black as sin, emerging from a dust cloud, releasing gravity bombs into the arteries of Empire command. The transmission ended with one line. This was humanity's answer. Panic bloomed like rot in a crowded pantry. Across dozens of systems, humans in hiding started speaking again. Quiet voices became calls for arms. Families who'd lived generations under alien names started whispering their real ones. They'd been waiting for a reason to rise. Now they had one. And at the center of it, still silent, still burning, was him. Inside Odyssey's cockpit, the man sat motionless. Every muscle in his back throbbed from strain. His eyes were red, dried out from a neural feedback and too much recycled air. The smell of scorched electronics lingered in the vents. Still, he didn't move. The AI-Echo- broke the silence. Reclaimer is requesting fleet-wide synchronization. They want to coordinate with Arkhaven and launch simultaneous raids on Imperial foundries. 4 targets, minimal defense, symbolic value. He said nothing. Do we respond? Still nothing. Echo spoke softer. You need rest. I need blood, he growled. That quieted everything. He stood slowly, pulling the neural rig off, the skin beneath red and blistered. Every motion reminded him he was alive, and reminded him why he didn't want to be. Not yet. Not while any piece of the Empire still floated. Where's the nearest communications relay? He asked. Echo processed for a moment. An old Imperial archive station orbiting Cyrax 4, abandoned after the riots, still operational. Good, he said, strapping on his weapons. We're going to talk. The relay station was a crumbling husk of what it once was. Once a symbol of unity through information, it now floated alone, scavenged, hollow. Burn marks from an old uprising scarred the side of the dish array. He docked Odyssey manually. No lights welcomed him, no guards, just silence and old gravity. Inside, he walked the halls of broken terminals and rotting chairs. The command center flickered to life under his hand. Dust danced in beams of blue from overhead. Patch into the Imperial broadcast line, he told Echo. You want to address them? No, he said. I want them to see me. The feed activated. Low priority channels, public news streams, fringe comms used mostly to suppress uprisings and issue warnings. Within moments, they all went dark, replaced by a single camera feed. Him. He stood in the dim control room, wearing black armor lined with soot, a revolver on his hip. No medals, no banners, just his face, hard and hollow-eyed, staring down the galaxy. This is for every man, woman, and child you silenced when Earth burned, he began, voice like a cracked engine. For every settlement you sterilized because you feared what we might become. For every prisoner you worked to death in the mining belts. For every colony you declared unstable and erased from the maps. We didn't forget. And now, neither will you. He took a step closer to the camera. You turned Earth into a crater, thinking it would scare us. All you did was plant something. You gave us something to fight for that isn't home, or politics, or hope. You gave us vengeance. And we've spent years feeding it. He leaned forward. You should have finished the job. He cut the feed. Across the Empire, millions watched in stunned silence. Soldiers, politicians, civilians, enslaved laborers, even the ones who hadn't seen a human in decades. That face, the dirt, the scars, the rage, was burned into their vision like an eclipse. Within minutes, systems erupted. One human mining crew on Karan 6 slaughtered their overseers and took control of an entire processing station. Another detonated a shield generator on Sevrak Station, plunging 3 orbital platforms into the planet's gravity well. One Empire-controlled news broadcaster attempted to denounce the speech. His head was mailed back to headquarters within the hour. The Empire tried to regain control. Too late. 2 days later, Reclaimer docked alongside Odyssey near the dead world of Miriah. They met aboard a hollowed-out cargo barge, neutral ground. The captain stood waiting, arms crossed, face drawn tighter than usual. You've started something, the captain said. People are dying. They were always dying, he replied. Now they're dying loud. Reclaimer's captain didn't argue. We've got fleets mobilizing. Human cells, pirates, even some defecting alien crews. Everyone wants in. But they want leadership. He scoffed. They want another symbol. They want someone who won't flinch. The man turned his back, looking out the barge's cracked window, at the stars spread like open wounds. I'm not a general, he said. No, the captain agreed. You're worse, you're honest. He said nothing for a long time. Then, give them targets, set up ghost fleets, hit supply lines, black sites, and comms hubs, burn the outer systems. Don't hold ground. Make them stretch themselves thin. And you? I go for the throat. The captain raised an eyebrow. The core systems? He nodded once. They'll have everything. Fortress worlds, defense satellites, planet-killer fleets. I'm counting on it. You'll die. Probably. But you'll be remembered. He looked over his shoulder, voice low and hard. I don't care about being remembered. I care about making them afraid. Back in Odyssey, he stood in the interface bay, looking at the star map. One system blinked at the center, Deltara Prime, the crown jewel of the Empire, military headquarters, political capital, population, billions, Echo spoke. You won't get within 100 clicks. I don't need to, he said. He tapped the screen, and an old blueprint opened. An Imperial gate array hidden beneath the moon of Virex, left unguarded after the mass fleet deployments. A relic. It had been used for experimental wormhole tunneling, never stable, always dangerous. Perfect. I'm going through there? You're going to bypass 200 defensive fleets using an abandoned wormhole gate? Exactly. Echo hesitated. That's suicide. He just stared at the flickering map. Number, that's the beginning of the end. At the edge of Virex's cracked moon, Odyssey hovered above the old wormhole array, its arms stretched like a broken spider, half its emitters dead. The surface below was jagged with the remains of experiments gone wrong. He activated the main thrusters. Prep the ship. Echo pulsed through the console. Stabilization field is non-functional. If we jump, we can't guarantee where we'll exit. He gripped the throttle. Doesn't matter, as long as we land close enough to shoot. With a scream of rending space, Odyssey lunged into the gate and disappeared. The stars rippled. The void shrank. And something old and angry followed behind. The void didn't like travelers. The wormhole wasn't built for something like Odyssey. It wasn't built for vengeance, or for the kind of man who had nothing left to lose. It screamed against the intrusion, warped gravity, twisted the laws of space around the hull like it was trying to chew the ship apart. But it didn't break. Neither did he. He gripped the controls with hands already bloodied, bones grinding in his knuckles. The rig fed pain into his spine like fire. He didn't flinch. He welcomed it. It reminded him that this moment was real, not rage, not a dream. This was now. Echo's voice flickered in and out over the static storm. Jump, hold, stabilizer is… Ride it, he growled. Don't stop, we come out fighting. The wormhole spat them out into a wall of red and gold light. Orbit over Deltara Prime. The Empire's beating heart. No alarms, no warning. They never expected anyone to come through that gate. It had been marked dead for decades. That was their mistake. Because dead things came back. Odyssey emerged into the atmosphere at an impossible angle, hull glowing hot from friction, shields flaring red. Immediately, defense satellites snapped to attention. Sirens blared. Anti-orbital batteries turned skyward. Too late. He punched the thrusters. Odyssey streaked across the city like a comet made of metal and hatred. Below, towers of crystal and glass shattered from the sonic boom. Imperial citizens, those smug, clean bastards who watched other planets burn on their news feeds, screamed and scattered like rats. He activated the main cannon. Target the palace, he snarled. Echo hesitated. Civilian density. I said fire. The shot lit the sky. A solid core kinetic round, massive and pure, tore through the clouds and hit the central tower, the Imperium spire, home to the High Council and the Supreme Commandant. It detonated on impact, slicing the tower in half. Glass rained like judgment. The top half of the spire toppled sideways, crushing monuments and statues below. Fires erupted in concentric waves. The screams reached orbit. Odyssey turned again, slower this time. 2 cruisers rose from the Imperial hangar field, weapons hot, broadcasting surrender demands. He ignored them. Echo? Got them. Odyssey's anti-ship pods detached mid-flight and rammed both cruisers at once, exploding like surgical bombs, ripping the command decks in half. One ship spun out, colliding with a sky bridge. The other simply disintegrated into glowing shards. He didn't stop. He took Odyssey through the center of the capital, low and deliberate. He wanted them to see him. The black hull, the roaring engines. The warship they said was a myth. He opened the external broadcast. "This is what you built," he said coldly. "All of this. You crushed our bones to build your empire, but you forgot something." A pause. A breath. "You forgot we remember everything." He launched seismic charges at the Senate Hall. It vanished in a flash of dust and fire. From orbit, more ships began to fall in. A full emergency defense fleet. It was the largest deployment seen over Deltara in generations. Carriers, assault wings, drone hives. Echo's voice came over the comms. "This is it. We won't survive this." "I don't need to," he said. "I just need to make them bleed." And he did. He fought in silence, Odyssey blazing against a fleet that outnumbered him 1,000 to 1. But every kill mattered. He destroyed 17 interceptors in a single pass. He sliced a dreadnought's spine open with a modified asteroid drill fused to Odyssey's hull. A repurposed mining tool turned into a warhead. He jammed comms, fried guidance systems, weaponized the atmosphere. He burned everything. But even gods bleed. A lucky hit smashed through Odyssey's undercarriage, blowing out the rear thruster. The ship jolted hard. He slammed against the console, ribs cracking. Blood filled his mouth. Echo's voice stuttered. "We've lost stabilizers." "Then we go down angry," he spat. He aimed Odyssey towards the central command dome, where the Empire's War Council was rumored to be buried underground, hidden like cowards beneath gold and marble. "Final strike," he whispered. Echo said nothing. Together they drove the ship downward. No guidance, no shields, just mass and vengeance. The ground rushed up to meet them. The impact was biblical. Odyssey struck the command dome at near-terminal velocity, tearing through 30 meters of reinforced alloy like paper. A shockwave flattened entire districts. Fire followed behind it like a second sun. The screen inside his cockpit cracked. Bones broke. Metal screamed. Then silence. Nothing moved for almost a full minute. Then the Empire began to react. Recovery crews found nothing usable. No clean remains, no black box, no clear DNA trace. Just fire and the remnants of a ship that had rewritten the laws of vengeance. But someone survived. Or maybe something. Because 30 minutes after the impact, every comms line in the Imperial core lit up with a new message. Not a threat, not a demand. Just a voice. His voice. "I'm not the last," it said. "I'm the first." The message repeated. Again and again. Weeks passed. The Empire tried to rebuild. They lied to their citizens, claimed the attack was a fluke, a freak accident, sabotage. But no one believed it, because the attacks didn't stop. Reclaimer struck 5 shipyards in 1 week. Human fleets, real fleets, formed out of the black, born from pirate clans, broken colonies, old sleeper cells. They moved like a disease through the Empire's spine. And above them all, they carried a symbol, not a flag, a name, Sentinel. No one knew if he lived. No one knew if Echo had survived the crash. Some said they were dead. Others said he'd never existed at all. But one thing was clear. The Empire was dying, and the ghost of Earth was the thing killing it. In the ruins of the control dome, buried beneath 40 meters of scorched rubble, a single system rebooted. Odyssey's AI core. Damaged, flickering, but alive. A camera came online, a lens blinked once, then twice, then it spoke, voice cracked but sharp. "Ready."